Hello, and today People's View will be talking to Doris Hohensee. Doris, you're a candidate from Ward 3 for our legislation, our legislative group representative. How do you do? How do you do?
Oh, I'm fine, thank you. Thank you for inviting me. I
you-
like to talk about it because I'd like to talk about what I want to do.
Good.
I want to listen to the people, and I think my plan is mostly about education and how parents weren't listened to. They were shut down, they didn't have a voice, and I have a plan to help give them a voice. We've got those education savings accounts coming in, and we had that Supreme Court case saying it can go not only to private schools, but it can go to religious schools. And in Nashua, we have a lot of low-income people, and they can now afford, because religious schools are cheaper than private schools. We could lose a lot of students. I don't want to see that, because we've already lost 10% over the pandemic, and they didn't come back. So what I'd like to do is build community schools and have a 5-person community school board for every school, where that 5-person board is local to your neighborhood, and they works with the principal and the teachers, and you set your own curriculum, mission, policy, and nominate teachers. So a lot of the nuts and bolts that are important are right there at the local level. Things like the superintendent can still do busing, he can figure out the transportation and meals and repairs and negotiations and budgets. There's a lot for them to continue to do. So what you're relieving them of is that little board would meet with teachers and nominate to the main district board the nominees that they have to elect. That's what they do now. They elect, except the superintendent does it. This way, it takes the burden off of him, and it makes it local. Because if parents have a stronger voice, if they can go to different meetings, and there's a lot less of them, if you're only going to Dr. Crisp meetings instead of the whole 17 school meetings. So you help set policy for your school. If you want recess before lunch or recess after lunch, that's a big issue in some schools. That you can work on locally. And if you want to say bilingual, our school should be bilingual. This is copied over Edmonton, Canada. That's a school district that's twice as big as Boston. And each school has a mission. Some of them have, they like dance or music. And they do the regular stuff, but they have an emphasis on it. And it's sort of like an excitement. It's something they do. Just like the charter schools, they all have a mission.
Right.
You've got the arts and science, you've got the different ones. So now you're competing directly with them because you're giving parents a voice. So they don't have to wait on a waiting list to get into the few charter schools. They don't have to take their ESA monies and go to another school. We can draw and keep them right there because they have a voice.
But you have separate by principals.
Yes, each building, like Mount Pleasant Elementary School has one principal, and then there would be 5 new board members that work with him. And in tandem with the teachers and the parents, they work all this stuff out, taking the responsibility away from the superintendent, so it's local. So Mount Pleasant might be very different in their needs from Dr. Crisp. Special ed, since it's costly, that would still be a district function. They could set the goals, because right now you'd have a per pupil with this new plan. Each pupil would get a set fee, whether you're in this school or that school, whether it's elementary or middle or high school. There might be a different level, but each student would get a per pupil stipend from the district. And anything extra like special needs, that changes from year to year, so that the district would be in charge of and supplementing that. So it's very simple. You don't have to divide the district. You don't have to say, here's the assets, here's the liabilities, and let's divide it into a million pieces. We've got 17 different schools or more, so we could easily just do this and immediately work with parents.
And the people have the choice of where their child goes.
Well, if they don't like a school, they could ask to be on a waiting list for another one.
I see. It's just
and if there's a seat
place,
that opens up, then we could try to accommodate that. That's how they do it in Edmonton, Canada. They also have a public transit system, so the student can get on the bus and go there. It's not as hard as it might be in Nashua. We have a few buses, but it might be something that we develop over time, or maybe some of the school buses would be able to move the students around, or the parents could pitch in. Do you know in California, they don't have school buses.
Really?
They don't.
No wonder it's such a traffic jam.
My daughter went out there because two of my grandchildren got into a charter school, and there's no aftercare. So she picks them up until they get aftercare and brings them home. When they get aftercare, then the mother can get out of work and pick them up. But it's a mess because we're lucky that we have transportation.
Yeah.
But
and how does it work with the sporting or the
well, every
clubs
school,
and stuff?
the schools have their own teams.
I see.
Just like before, we have North and South High School. They have their own teams. They compete. There's no change in that. If they want to work cooperatively and have a joint team because something is very, very small, they can work that out. There's no problem.
Okay.
But it gives you the feeling of 17 different independent, innovative little schools rather than everybody has the same thing. If I don't like it, I'm stuck. I got to move out of town.
So when you get elected up there, you want to be on the education committee.
I could, or I could just work with somebody that's up there already. I'll definitely, if I get up there, I'll definitely work with a team of people.
Right.
I mean, so we can get it through.
Do you have other people that you know that
I have other people that are like-minded I could work with.
Okay.
But we put in a legislation to let parents opt out of objectionable programs, because if you like everything in the school, but there's one thing you don't like, whether it's history or English, you can opt out of that course and teach it on your own or pay for some, you can work it out. That's innovative. That gives you, so you're not at the breaking point if this one teacher is ruining it for your child. So there's a little safety.
That's very interesting, because I did have, when my children were growing up, one of them had a problem with a teacher, just personality clash or whatever you want to call it. And it just wasn't right for her.
You can ask to be transferred, and sometimes that works. But if they don't have a seat in another class, then you just say, okay, I'm going to do it. And parent could do a correspondence course. They could do VLAX. They could do any number
of... Well, that's a lot of things they have now that they didn't have way back then.
That's what I'm saying. There are so many tools, online tools, through the mail curriculum programs, that you shouldn't have a terrible year because you've got one problem that you can't resolve.
So people in our audience should be more aware, too, of what else is available.
Yes.
A lot of people really don't know enough about
Well,
that.
another thing is academics, their mission to do. But if it's non-academic surveys and tests or quizzes and things like that, they have to have informed written consent from the parents. A lot of times they skip that. So, that way the kid's not traumatized because you didn't know, maybe he went into a program on suicide or something. You want to be able to reinforce and help him that day when they have something like that, ask questions. So sometimes it's very beneficial because they don't know what's going on in that family. It might be a sore spot because a sister or brother might have committed suicide. So now you're opening up a can of worms. So that's why informed written consent is needed for some of those non-academic issues. So parents can help.
You had experience too, because you did a lot of homeschooling.
I did.
So you have experiences among the different personalities of your own children.
I did, but I don't feel like I should just withdraw from the school and let it crash and burn. I think public education is critical, and I want to make it the best we can make it. And I don't like these ESAs where it's unpredictable how many just leave. They take the money and leave, and you're budgeting and getting teachers, and all of a sudden you lose half a class or something. This way, the district can fight back. They can have these community schools, help the parents get involved, help them get what they need right there, instead of having to travel to get it.
And you take away this objection people have where choice seems to make them think you're stealing their money, the public supply.
And that you wouldn't steal the money. It would get per pupil from the district. The money would be, it's even better than public charter schools because it doesn't leave the district. It's right there. It's a mechanism for parents to have a bigger voice because you've got 17 schools with 5-member boards. So it's easy to elect a little board in your own neighborhood.
More transparency, more
Well, if you want to
communication.
elect somebody citywide, that's a lot of street corners you've got to get these signs out. If it's just in your neighborhood, it's a lot easier. So you're making, and that, I learned that when I homeschooled. They put in a bad law in 1990, and I worked to change that at the state level. Well, that was hard. It took 20 years to do that because there's 400 reps here, there's 24 there, and then there's the governor, and everybody's got to be on the same page.
Right.
That's hard. That's long distance. Most parents wouldn't even try.
Right.
And the district is bigger than just a school.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're making it that way, parents can be so much more involved, and I think they'd be happier.
You seem to have spread this around a little bit, and have you gotten any feedback of why it shouldn't work?
No. I mean, I talked to one teacher and he said, well, maybe we should, instead of doing that, we should have committees, teacher committees that decide this. And the problem with that is they're not elected. Mm-hmm. They're appointed by the superintendent. And those committees are stacked by the superintendent. They're all the same people. Mm-hmm. And they all do what the superintendent wants. So it makes it look like, so it's not giving the parents a bigger voice. This is about parents taking control of their schools, working with the teachers. It doesn't have to be hostile. It just, it's a three-legged stool.
Well, it's sort of looking at the way we look at with our House of Representatives. Mm-hmm. We have 400 of them, and there's no other state that has it.
Yes.
And I think it feeds along those lines.
Yes, there's 3 state reps in each ward.
And nationally,
not every ward has a school, but we're saying 5 in approximately the same size as a ward. So it's very local. Mm-hmm. You'll bump into them at the grocery store. You'll know these people. They're in your neighborhood. So it helps.
How are you going to get the word out about this program?
I want to put in legislation to allow it, to allow candidates to come forward and run and put them at an election. So you'll have a ballot in the odd number years for a school board, and then you could pick a second ballot for 1 elementary school, 1 middle school, and 1 high school. Mm-hmm. You can't vote for more than 1, and then you're having a voice in 3 schools. Mm-hmm. And that way you're electing people to all, because you might have a child in elementary, you might have a child in middle school, so you've got a direct voice to something smaller. It's the best we can do without dividing up the district, which would require an accounting of all the debt, accounting of all the assets, divided up fairly. So it's all cut, and then you don't have an elementary school in every ward. Some have 2, some have none. Not everyone has a middle school. So this way you're not dividing up the economics. The superintendent continues to do the budget. He continues to negotiate with the teacher. All the monetary things are up there at the district level. He just gives a per pupil stipend to each school. Like if you have 40 kids in a class, you'll get 40 times the stipend. And you've got, five classes. Usually it's like 1 to 5 for an elementary school.
This is a big program, and you know what will happen up there. The first thing they'll do if you have fun with study.
That's all right. That's all right. The problem is we're going to lose kids to the ESA. They're going to leave the public schools. And if teachers are really worried about destroying the public schools, then they need to get on board with something that's innovative. I'm worried that it'll destroy the private schools also. Because when you start funneling state money to private and religious schools, they're not independent. Sooner or later, they're going to have to take the state assessment, like the public charter schools. They get their own curriculum, but they have to take the state assessment. There'll be more and more regulations. They'll come over time. After these schools get dependent on the ESA funds, they're going to well, what are we going to do? I can't shut down. We'll just have to go with this. We'll have to go with that. And we'll lose our independence. So I'm equally afraid of what it'll do there. So I think this is like a best of both worlds.
It sounds good. It sounds interesting.
And if one school just doesn't want to do much, they can elect 5 people that just rubber stamp whatever the district board does and not change anything. Because they'll start with the policies that exist in the district. They can say, we're not changing anything. We love everything. And fine. That school doesn't innovate. The next school over might. And then the parents might say, hey,
Yeah.
I like that. So it gives the option.
Well, it also needs a lot of communication. It needs a lot of interaction.
Well, I think
people-
it would be easier because you've got parents that come occasionally to the
Right.
full school board meetings,
Right.
and they're diminished. They don't
Right.
get really recognized. They're not. Their ideas are sometimes scoffed at. But if you're in a small little community of your school, your voice is bigger because you more directly affect the voting of those 5 board members. You're part of that community. I think it'll be more responsive. I think people want to work together if they could. And I think they'd like the opportunity to make like little charter schools in the community schools. Like if we like music, then everybody will do an instrument. We'll use somehow whatever extra funds we can to get volunteers to come in and teach them all music. Because a lot of times they say when you learn music, academics, they go hand in hand. Whatever it is that they like. And then they're reaching out to the community more. They get more volunteers. It'll just spin and get better and better. Or it'll stay the same and nothing will get worse.
No, I know a little bit. One of my daughters is really active with her son, and as he's going through elementary school and everything like that, she's helped bring in interesting
Volunteers
things,
and, yeah.
outside groups.
So you could look in Edmonton, Canada, and they've got so many different schools with so many different missions that gives you ideas for where to start. What would you like? Well, maybe we'll try this. If it doesn't work, we can try something else. But at least you're offering them something a little extra to excite
Definitely.
them and get them like, well, this school is special because it has what we want. And we have a voice.
Well, you got a good program there. I hope you're getting it around. How is the rest of your communication with your voters coming?
Well, I had a door knocker sent out. I filled out a lot of surveys and got a lot of endorsements from the Coalition for New Hampshire Taxpayers, New Hampshire Liberty Alliance, and others. And the I think it's the Young Americans for Liberty sent out door knockers on everybody in the district. That was a real nice thing to have my picture along with another candidate and say that we're going to help you vote for us. And so that was really nice.
Did they bring up any other issues that they want you to speak up on?
No, they just did a survey and find out where you are philosophically.
Okay.
Then they did a phone interview to find out by questioning you, what do you want to do? I told them about my program. And well, what if you don't get elected? I'll probably try to do it anyway. But they said they wouldn't be able to talk to me after that because when they endorse you, you can't talk to them. They just have to do it separately. I didn't even know till somebody came to my door. I'm like, oh my goodness, that's me. So that was very nice.
Oh,
But it tells you, do those surveys. Some of them will pay off.
good.
So that was good.
But going up there in your committee and stuff, there's going to be some bigger budget problems, I would think, all along the line. Not just in education, but in other. You worried about that?
Well,
Or are you worried about how things are going now that have to be changed?
I'm not going to be getting on that budget committee, so I focused on education.
Right.
And my theory, again, is I did it with home education, and I've done it with several bills for public school. I focus on the philosophy that what is good for, and don't worry about the money. If it's good and people like it, this is net zero. There's no added. They could actually get rid of a few of the directors because it's all now decentralized. But it's not going to add to the budget. So the budget finance committee, they're going to have their hands full. I will read it carefully, but I don't know that I'll have a lot of input on that.
Well, this election isn't for the real city ones, that the city's going to have a big problem
Oh, yes,
with
the
the
city.
assessment that came
In
out.
a year, we need a new mayor
Yeah.
candidate. We have one that doesn't like public comment. He's shutting down public voice, saying usually you go in and you talk something on the agenda, but if it's the first or second reading, you can't. You can only do it for the third reading, so that curtails you at the beginning. And at the end, used to be anything on or off the agenda. Now it's no, it's still on the agenda. So you're muzzled. And they won't take communications. Like if I write a letter and then it's on the agenda, I could talk about that letter. It's on the agenda. Not taking communications anymore. I mean, does it make you feel like they want to shut you up and just put duct tape over your mouth?
What happened to transparency?
Apparently it's uncomfortable for them. I don't know. I mean, I'd rather know what people are thinking ahead of an election so you could work with them. But if you shut them down, you're working over them. You're not working with them. And that can only work for so long. If we get another good candidate and people have an alternative, maybe we can get some transparency back.
I see. Well, we're going to have to think about that maybe in
next year.
Yeah, 6 months we'll start on that
See if you want to
campaign.
run. See if you know somebody who wants to run.
Yeah, get them ready.
Yes. They've got to start going to board meetings and getting the lay of the land, so when there's debates or discussions, they know what's involved. You can't be just totally green.
Well, I'd like to let our audience know, people who are interested in something like that ought to join one of the groups that are looking at that. The Republican Club meets on the second Wednesday of every month. And
Lori Ortolano, who's doing a lot of First Amendment stuff, she has a good governance website where she posts a lot of information. I don't think she'll run. I think she's more than busy doing what she's doing. But
and I think she's been very effective with that.
She's won, pro se and with attorneys.
Right.
It takes forever because our court system just does that. Drags things out.
Oh, definitely.
But
and it's not their money they've used to
that's
pay
why
the lawyers.
they've got to shut you up, because you don't want to come in and crow about your victory, and maybe you should stop throwing money at stupid lawsuits and put it to a better use. But
I don't know how we're going to do that, but people need to get active and we need to get organized, and that's why I invite people to do that as a group. That,
and we have to be careful that we don't. A lot of the state campaigns, you have one far-out liberal spender or something, and then 2 or 3 conservatives splitting the vote. So if they each get a third or less, and the one liberal, he comes in and cleans up. We got to be smart. We got to limit. You can't limit. Anybody can run, but we got to work together.
Right. That's.
And I told a couple of the candidates for mayor last time, get into a room. The 2 of you don't belong in there. Fight it out. One of you come out, but it didn't happen. We split the vote.
Yeah, that's true. I know we have to work together and not have too many people.
Everybody can run. That's your right.
Right.
But if we split conservatives 10 ways and they only have one big spender, he'll win.
So are you thinking of anybody else that you have ideas? Are you promoting somebody to run?
I'm promoting anybody that takes Sununu out. I did not like the lockdown. I did not like that I was non-essential, that I was locked up, that he could control and destroy businesses.
Yeah, that
there
was
were
one problem.
Fencing clubs, sporting clubs, a lot of them, just 20 years building them up, and they were just destroyed. Cafes, restaurants, so many things. Arts, a lot of art things. We just lost that cultural, texture that we used to have. They just go belly up. They couldn't handle the 2-year stretch. So we lost a lot. We need somebody that'll work with us better. So I think people ought to get out there and look and find a good candidate and replace some of these that have no respect for you.
We need to organize and fight for it. Get the people to talk more. That's one of the reasons we have this program.
Well, look at the polls. See who the front runner is and see who's not. It may not be your favorite conservative, but if he has a chance of beating the liberal, be strategic.
Well, you see the things that are going on with the election this year, just really coming to a head now, where the the liberal area, and they're not sure who, is putting out certain types
Oh,
of
yeah.
information so that
Destroy or
they destroy.
They want to influence the primaries so they have a weaker candidate,
That's right.
supposedly. We also have 2 lawsuits in
Yeah.
there. One because they destroyed all the memory cards, and that's a violation of 2 federal laws.
Oh, really?
So that's one. We the people, or I don't know. There was some group, voter integrity group,
Yeah.
put that in. Then there was another one that Dan Richards put in, saying that it's unconstitutional to be using those AccuVote. It wasn't passed by the legislature. It wasn't passed by the
Oh, yeah.
people in the Constitution. And then he cited all the problems that we have with those AccuVote machines here and elsewhere. So those are going, and that's an emergency injunction.
Well, I know too. We're going to have lawyers at every voting booth this year.
Yeah.
Hopefully, we'll keep that organized, because while I've worked with the ones here in Ward 1, where I live, I haven't seen any problems. There are some that have been having problems, and they get a little bit arrogant in how they run
Yes,
it.
we've had one that's a little bit arrogant in Ward 3. And a Democrat friend of mine is going to write to the clerk and complain, and that's good. She doesn't want to be intimidated when she goes, "Oh, you're still a Democrat?" It's like, excuse me? Where does she come off?
Yeah.
So,
Well, thank you for your time. We're running out now, and I'd like to have you back afterwards, after the primary and everything, that we want to get somebody like you with ideas up in our legislature.
okay, I'll be happy to come back. Whether I get through or not, the ideas percolate.
Good. We'll still talk then.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.